You finish an episode right before the cliffhanger, close your laptop, and go about your day. Except you don't, not really. Some part of your mind stays right there on that unresolved scene, tugging at you at odd moments for the rest of the afternoon. The finished episodes from last week are already gone, filed away and forgotten. The one that stopped mid-scene is the one still living rent-free in your head. Psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik first spotted this in a 1920s Vienna cafe, watching waiters who could recall a full unpaid order in perfect detail, then draw a total blank on that same order the moment the bill was settled. She took the pattern into the lab, having people work through 20 small tasks and interrupting about half of them partway through. With no warning a memory test was coming, she later asked everyone to recall the tasks, and the unfinished ones came back roughly twice as often as the finished ones. This is called the Zeigarnik effect, and it explains why unfinished business is so much louder in your mind than finished business ever is. Decades later, organisational psychologist Sophie Leroy found this same pool costs you in the present moment, not just in memory. She named it attention residue. When people switched from an unfinished task to a new one, a measurable slice of their attention stayed behind, tethered to the old task, quietly dragging on whatever came next. In her experiments, people who moved on from an incomplete task performed noticeably worse on the task that followed than people who'd been allowed to finish first, as if part of their mind never actually left the room. Her mentor, psychologist Kurt Lewin, had an explanation for the mechanism underneath both findings. He called it attention system. Starting a task creates a small mental commitment to see it through. Finish it, and the tension releases, like a held breath let out. Interrupt it, and that tension stays live, quietly pulling at your attention until something closes the loop. There's a stranger companion finding. Psychologist Maria Ovsiankina discovered that people don't just remember interrupted tasks better, they actively want to go back and finish them, even with no reward attached and nobody asking. Interrupt someone mid-puzzle, leave it sitting in view, and most people pick it back up unprompted, purely to close it out. This became known as the Ovsiankina effect, and it held true even when finishing changed nothing about the outcome. Picture an ancestor midway through building a shelter before nightfall interrupts the work, or partway through tracking an animal before the trail goes cold in fading light. Forgetting an unfinished, life-relevant task wasn't a small inconvenience back then. It meant a cold, exposed night, a wasted hunt, an unmended weapon facing tomorrow's threat unprepared. A mind that treated finished and unfinished tasks the same would have been a mind prone to walking away from exactly the jobs that mattered most. Here's where it gets genuinely useful. Psychologists E.J. Masicampo and Roy Baumeister ran studies asking a simple question. Does actually finishing an unfinished goal quiet the mental noise, or is there another way to get the same relief? What they found: simply making a specific plan for when and how you'd complete the task reduced the intrusive thoughts almost as effectively as finishing it outright. Your mind doesn't need the task done. It needs to know the task is handled, and a concrete plan is enough to tell it so. Modern entertainment weaponized this circuit long before anyone had a name for it. A cliffhanger is a deliberately unresolved tension system planted right where a writer wants your attention to stay locked. Streaming platforms time the next episode autoplay countdown to fire in the exact window your Zeigarnik-driven urge to close the loop is strongest, before your conscious mind has even decided whether to keep watching. Video games run the identical trick: a level ending mid-objective, a quest marker sitting on the map with an unclaimed reward attached, a daily login streak one day away from breaking. None of these are neutral design choices. Each one is a small, deliberately unfinished tension system, planted because an unresolved task pulls at your attention harder than a resolved one ever could. Even a song stuck in your head fits the same pattern. Researchers studying earworms have found they're especially common for songs you know only part way, melodies you've heard just enough to half remember, but not enough to recall completely. The tune isn't finished, so your mind keeps replaying the fragment it has, behaving exactly like Zeigarnik's unpaid restaurant order. This is exactly why a vague to-do list doesn't quiet your mind just by existing. Deal with taxis leaves the loop wide open, because your mind has nowhere to file it. Gather receipts Tuesday evening, file online by the 15th, gives that same mind a concrete resting place, a defined slot where the task is already handled, even though nothing's been filled out yet. A vague list item is still an open loop. A specific plan is a loop with a visible door. You can probably feel your own version of this without trying very hard. An unanswered text sitting in the back of your mind for days. A half-organised closet glimpsed every time you open the door. An email drafted but never sent, somehow louder in your memory than the dozen you actually did send that same week. A single unchecked box at the bottom of an otherwise finished list, small enough to take 30 seconds, loud enough to outshout everything above it. None of these are objectively important. Most of them are genuinely small. A closet is not a shelter, and a draft email is not a tracked animal going cold in the grass. But small and unfinished still beats large and finished every time, at least as far as your attention is concerned, because your mind was never built to sort tasks by size. It was built to sort them by whether the loop is still open, a rule written millions of years before to-do lists or inboxes existed to hold one. So the next time an unfinished task keeps circling back into your thoughts uninvited, you're not failing to let something go through some personal weakness. You're running a filing system built by ancestors who couldn't afford to forget the shelter that wasn't finished or the trail that went cold. The fix was never willpower. It's closing the loop, or at minimum, telling your mind exactly when, where, and how it's going to get closed. So the tension has somewhere to rest instead of nowhere to go. You finish an episode right before the cliffhanger, and some part of you stays right there on that unresolved scene. It's stuck because, as far as your oldest instincts are concerned, the story isn't over yet.